about the mission here. We need an aviation mission for Springfield. I'm going to go back to Washington and team up with Senator Durbin to see if we can bring a C-27J aircraft to this facility and/or the unmanned aerial vehicle called MQ-1/9s, so that we have a working mission here. I'm tremendously impressed by the mission that we do have here. You see here the engine maintenance facility, which can turn around an F-16 engine 3 times faster than the depot guys can do. And I think that's because of our aviation heritage and the fact that it is 100% military folks who understand that a pilot will be risking his life in action using this engine, and I think the quality that this facility turns out is key. I'm also very impressed with the Air Operations Center, and so I'm hoping that in the final spending bill of the Congress that we will have a full DoD appropriations bill attached to it. So while the rest of the government will likely be funded under a continuing resolution, the Department of Defense will not. It will have an appropriations bill, and I think Democrats and Republicans in the Congress agree with that, obviously because of Libya and everything else. My hope is that certainly an Air Operations Center with a new facility is built here in Springfield. Certainly this engine facility, which is turning out a product at 3 times the rate of a depot, continues. But then we engage on this C-27J aircraft issue or unmanned aerial vehicles so that we bring military flight back to Springfield. I would just say finally that these airmen are going to be supporting, for example, an exercise coming up regarding the New Madrid earthquake fault, made more important because of what happened in Japan. C-27J aircraft that would be able to lift cargo in very rough airfields, if not just highways, I think are critical for the emergency response capabilities of the nation. Basing them in Springfield, Illinois, is basing them in the center of the country. It allows them to get faster to any potential contingency than any other place in America. And that's the argument that I hope Senator Durbin and I will make with the Air National Guard in the Pentagon soon.
Senator, can you talk about the situation in Libya and what your position is on at this point?
I support the President's mission, but I hope that he follows more rigorously the Colin Powell doctrine. That's to have the enemy hit with overwhelming force, to appoint one allied commander, to outline a clear mission, which I believe should be the protection of the civilians in Libya by the end of the Gaddafi dictatorship, which is, I think, the only real way to protect them. And then an estimate of the cost. My understanding, the Pentagon is currently estimated about $500 million as the cost. And finally, an exit strategy, which I believe should be the recognition of the Jabril Transitional Council, that already the French and the Qataris have recognized as the legitimate new government of Libya. I understand Colin Powell was in the White House yesterday. He's doing no press and no interviews because he's giving advice directly to the president, and I hope he follows it.
Senator, President Obama already said that he's not going to commit U.S. ground troops in Libya. Do you think that's the right way to go about this?
I do. I think that there should be no U.S. boots in the ground in Libya. I do understand, though, that there may be allied boots on the ground. So we may have critical personnel from France and Britain called forward air controllers. Air Force guys know exactly who that is. Those are people directing the bombs and lasing the targets so that you hit well and accurately. My understanding is that if we have non-American NATO personnel directing the air power, it's going to be pretty effective.
Can you speak to the reports that Al-Qaeda might be involved with the rebels?
I can. I think much of that information comes out of the Gaddafi dictatorship himself. He has generated a lot of those reports because he knows it's a hot button with Western governments and especially the United States. I think what we have really seen is a spontaneous uprising in Tripoli, in Misrata, in Brega, and especially in Benghazi. And there was little to no al-Qaeda presence there before. This is really the uprising of the Libyan people responding to a 40-year dictatorship that has been one of the most corrupt, violent, and quite frankly, at times crazy in North Africa.
I know the administration is thinking about possibly arming the rebels. Is that something that should go forward? And if so, how do you ensure that doesn't turn into another Afghanistan?
Especially with the arms embargo.
That's right. I don't think there should be an arms embargo with the rebels. I think that we should help the Jabril government to win this war. I think that, especially as citizens of Illinois, we should take our advice from General Sherman. When you're in a conflict, make it rough, make it violent, so that it is over quickly. If we win this war as fast as possible, it will cost less, it will create less turmoil in the Arab world, and it will calm international economies, helping the U.S. recovery and the recovery of Western European governments. I think clearly the United States has entered on the side of this conflict, and now our job is to make sure that we win it as fast as possible.
How do you make sure, though, that it doesn't turn into Afghanistan if the rebels are armed and later down the line some sort of terrorist influence does come in?
My sense of Libya, but others may be more correct, is it's a tremendous oil economy that built a middle class to service that oil economy. It's a fairly wealthy Arab country because it's been a member of OPEC for so many years. As long as this conflict is over quickly, I think the people of Libya are going to turn to their natural leaders, who are intellectuals, political leaders, and folks who are legitimately of and by the Libyan people. They're not going to be interested in terrorists coming out of Pakistan. Those are not going to be people that the Libyan people will see as particularly legitimate and representing their long-term interests.
How has UN, I think it was Resolution 1973,
Right.
How will that affect U.S. policy in Yemen and any other nation like Bahrain?
Well, I think we should have no boots on the ground in those countries, and we have a very strong interest in Bahrain. The United States Fifth Fleet is based there that protects the West's supply of oil. And so I see, as the president does, the Libya situation is very different than the situation, for example, in Syria and Bahrain and Yemen. We simply don't have the means to intervene everywhere, but in Libya we have unbelievably strong Allied support, especially led by the French and British militaries. We have Arab militaries now coming online, especially the Qatari Air Force that just showed up. Even the Swedes have put their force into this fight, which is a unique political confluence reflecting one basic fact. Gaddafi has no support anywhere, and even the Chinese and Russians let the UN resolution happen. It shows that while he murdered 180 Americans aboard Pan Am 103 a long time ago and kind of broke relations with us, he has been so irresponsible for so long, no one cares whether he remains in power or not, including the Russians and Chinese. And while they may say something in international forum, the fact is they let the UN resolution pass, and that was a big thing.
Senator, to kind of shift gears to gas prices.
Yep.
Recently, Senator Durbin proposed adding like a 15-cent per gallon gas tax to help with roads and develop alternative energy. Would you as well support that idea?
No, I do not think that we should raise taxes on the American people, and a gas tax is the most regressive tax on the working poor. The economy is just starting to recover, due in part, I think, to the bipartisan tax legislation that the Congress passed in December that President Obama signed. Raising taxes on the American people right as the economy starts to recover, I think, is the wrong way to go.
And how does that play into the crisis in Libya right now with oil prices?
Well, I think the crisis in Libya is causing oil prices to go up. I think the quicker this conflict is over, the more markets will calm down, which will benefit the Western economies, including the United States. Raising energy prices in America, I think, would be the wrong way to go, either through more conflict or a gas tax increase.
Speaking of energy, I mean, what is your position at this point on nuclear power given the events in Japan?
I support nuclear power, but I think we should upgrade the safety of nuclear power plants, especially in Illinois. That's why Senator Durbin and I held a bipartisan hearing last week in Chicago to take the lessons learned from Fukushima and apply them to the fleet of 11 reactors that are here in Illinois. Quick lessons learned. First, the Fukushima reactors evacuation zone was 12 miles, and then 19 miles. The reactor zone in Illinois is only 10. I think we should update the zone to make sure that we're reflecting the lessons of Fukushima. Secondly, the state of Illinois needs to use the 2010 census data to make sure that we have iodine pills ready for everybody inside the evacuation zone. And third, I'm concerned about the nuclear storage waste ponds at Dresden 1 and Rock Island 1 and 2. These are designs that are identical to the Fukushima sites, where the waste pool is actually stored right next to the reactor on its roof. I think that's probably too close, so that if you have a problem in the reactor or you have a problem in the waste pond, you have a problem in both. I think separating the two is something that nuclear officials should look at.
We got
Do you
time
favor
for we got time
building-
for two more. We'll do Chris and then let Alex get one in.
Do you favor building more nuclear power plants at this point? I mean,
Right now, the private sector is not for building new nuclear power plants, but the reason why is not Fukushima, it's economics. I talked to John Rowe, who runs Exelon, the largest nuclear power operator in Illinois, and he said that the market is sending a strong signal, and that strong signal is natural gas. That some people are pro-nuclear power and some people are pro-wind, solar, and hydro, but both are far more expensive than natural gas. And I think that the Congress should not fight the market. It should empower the market, and the market is sending a very clear natural gas signal. It is by far the lowest cost way to provide power to grow America's economy.
Senator, when I talked to you a few weeks ago, you mentioned the need to rein in DoD spending, but obviously that was before this conflict in Libya got started.
Right.
How has this affected budget negotiations?
I think we're going.
the DoD?
So I sit now as the ranking Republican on the military construction committee, for example, that will concern the future of this site and others. And my staff, when they talked to DoD, said that under current plans, DoD will simply pay for the Libyan operation out of its current budget, and there will be no supplemental request. I think that will put further pressure on other DoD accounts. My hope is that the conflict is over quickly, so that budget impact is reduced. Over time, though, I strongly support what Secretary Gates has outlined. He thinks that we should have no second engine for the Joint Strike Fighter. He thinks that we should not have Joint Forces Command. He thinks, or I think, that we should not have a separate Army, Navy, and Air Force commissary system. It should just be one military commissary system. Add it all up, it's about $70 billion in reductions. And I think the Secretary of Defense has outlined the right plan.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does this change if we get C-27? Yes, it does.
I'm almost out of those, and I hope we get something that I can put on there.
MQ1s or C-27s. Thank you.
The next thing would have been a computer.
Oh, yeah, I know, exactly. Thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
You bet. This is great. Hey, Lance, that's pretty impressive for a start. That's a big jump in your career. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. What did you fly in Desert Storm?
KC-135. Also with 126 out of Chicago here.
Oh, yeah. So those guys, when they went all off to Odyssey Dawn.
Right. Yeah. I received the calls.